a Sapphire Running Zone podcast.
Hi, this is Tim from the Sapphire Running Zone. Welcome to another of our Runners Stories podcast series. And today we're joined by Jade from Cornwall. And Jade has just run the London Marathon for Cornwall Hospice Care. And Jade has had an amazing day in the sun. So Jade, tell us what it was like.
It was, as you said, absolutely amazing. The weather was warm, but it made for a beautiful day. And just the atmosphere, was just electric. Everybody said it would be amazing. It'd be like nothing else, but it really was. I think until you're there and you get to witness it, it just really is the best of people come together, and it almost doesn't feel like London. It's everybody's friendly, everybody's there just to have the best day ever. So it was, once in a lifetime thing to do for sure. It was great.
Let's just rewind a little bit, Jade, and just have a look at your training. Apart from a couple of little bumps in the road, it was pretty much a dream training program, really, wasn't it?
I had a little bit of time off around Christmas when I got the flu. So I felt that I dropped out of training and that I kind of almost went backwards a little bit. But I think in hindsight, actually having a couple of weeks break is fine. I think as long as you pick back up and then steadily build again, it comes back quite quickly. So that was, a very minor blip. And then I had a couple of weeks off. It must have been March time, which again is quite close, because I'd gone out for an 18-mile run and felt a bit of pain in my left knee. And it steadily got worse. So I actually had to abandon my 18-mile run around the 14-mile mark and hobble back. But it was just a bit of a runner's knee. So where my muscles have got a little bit tight on the left-hand side, it just was causing a bit of pain in the left knee. But again, that with some physio, with some rolling on the foam rollers, which are if you've never used one before, it's quite painful, but certainly works. And then I was back to it and it was absolutely fine, but nothing major. I felt very lucky. I had no major injuries or issues.
And you built in plenty of contingency into your timeframes, hadn't you? So there was no issue. Missing a couple of weeks at Christmas wasn't a deal breaker, was it? Whereas if, of course, your training's too tight and you haven't left enough time, 2 weeks at Christmas could be a problem.
Exactly. I think I'd started early. I'd got a really good base fitness quite early on, and then just had kind of followed my plan. But as you said, had contingency there that if I needed to take a week or two out, it was fine. I think at the time it felt like, that there was potential it could be an issue, but I think that's really just from being a novice runner and not understanding that actually, as long as you've got that base there, you've got that plan in action, you will be absolutely fine. And that's not a worry to take a couple of weeks out if you absolutely have to. And it's probably quite likely that these things are going to happen, that you probably will get a cough or a cold or have a little minor niggle going on where you need to just take it easy for a week or so.
Talk us through race week then. What did it all go to plan? When did you travel up? What was the expo like? And what was the night before like?
The week before was fine. I think I'd planned on having some earlier nights, which didn't really happen with small children and everything else. It still felt like quite a busy week. But again, just really making sure that I was eating right, that, I was looking after myself as much as I possibly could and trying to keep it as easy and relaxed as possible. That was good, and something I'd recommend. And then, we traveled up on the Friday, which was fine. We did kind of a mid-morning train, so not particularly busy, which was good. And then, we kind of had quite a relaxed Friday. Once we got into London, we were staying with family. So that was quite nice as well, that we had, a really nice kind of friendly place to be staying. And then Saturday we went to the expo. So again, some people say don't go on Saturday because it will be crazy busy and you could be queuing for hours. But we actually got there about 10 o'clock in the morning. So again, not as soon as the doors opened, but it was fine. There was no queuing, or very minimal of that. So it was very, very kind of smooth running, getting through the expo, picking up our race packs, our numbers and everything. And then we got to enjoy the expo for an hour or so, which was great. Kind of had a really good look around all the stalls and, kind of all the speakers that were on. Obviously, we found our names that were printed on the wall of names. So that was nice. Got quite a good few photos, and just really enjoyed being in the atmosphere, which was great. And again, just quite a relaxed rest of the day. We did have dinner with friends and family that night, which probably did go into the evening a little bit too late. But again, it was really relaxed, so it was fine. And then, and then race day was here. Finally was here. And again, I was up quite early. I think I kept waking every hour or so, thinking, "Oh, do I need to get up now? Is it 10 minutes to my alarm?" But yeah, it was fine. It was exciting that morning.
And what time did you get to the start? What was your wave start?
So my wave start was 10:30. We got there. What time did we arrived about 8:30? Yeah, so just before 8:30, we actually got to Greenwich Park because we were getting an overground train into Liverpool Street. And then from there, the tube that we had planned on taking, they were having signal issues. So again, could have been a bit of a panic, but we just rerouted, went another way, and it was absolutely fine. We managed to get on tubes. It was, slightly busy, but not crazy, kind of being crammed in like a sardine, tin can. It was fine. And just had a nice little walk to Greenwich Park once we got off the tube. And my husband was with me at the time. And then, he kind of went off and I went through. And it was very busy. I was in the red zone, and I was going to be wave 8. I actually ended up going wave 10 because the queues for the loos were just absolutely crazy. I would say that was probably my only little bit of feedback that I would give to them, is maybe more toilets in that section, because the queues were, I think I was queuing for about 40 minutes. Wow. So that was it. Yeah. So that was not ideal. But again, I was actually with a friend of mine who's also running for the charity, and she was going to be wave 10. And so we just decided, it's fine. There's no big stress. Obviously, if you have to join a later wave, you can. So that's fine. And actually, it was nice because we started together, and, it was both our first ever marathon, and we were both nervous. So just having that friendly face with you when you start and you cross that start line was really lovely. So that was good.
Yeah, that's a really nice way of doing it, isn't it? It does take the edge off the nerves a little bit, doesn't it? That's a nice thing to do. What are your memories of the first half of the race then? Let's say going up to Tower Bridge.
Well, just the crowds are amazing. Even at that point, there were so many people lining the pavements and the road. And I think with the weather being so beautiful and so sunny, I think some people who had done the marathon before said that there were more people out, which was great. And already at those very early stages, people had obviously gone and bought their own cases of water and were giving out their own bottled water. People were giving out ice lollies, all that kind of thing, which was so nice to see. And I think you don't always associate London with being overly friendly, but it was just, everybody was so supportive, and they just gone out their way to make time to be there to support people. So that was really great. I think for me and my friend Alice, who I was with, we were being very conscious with our pace to not go too quick, because it was planned to be obviously a very warm day. We really didn't want to overcook it. So we took it really nice and easy. And we just enjoyed it, which was great, because again, might never do London again, but I just wanted to appreciate every single mile, and really look around and take it in. So the first, as we led up to Tower Bridge, we just took it easy. We enjoyed it. We interacted with people. Thanking people for cheering your name was really nice. Just, kind of engaging with everybody as much as we could. And it was a nice, easy pace. So it felt good at the time.
Good. And when you turned right at the end of Tower Bridge and ran for a mile or so, and then you get to the dreaded point where you can see others coming towards you, and you're heading away from the finish, of course, at that point. Did that affect you in any way, or was it just a case of you just kept the same pace going and morale was good?
Yeah, morale did stay good. My friend Alice, who I was with, she was suffering with a bit of an injury. So we knew at one point that we probably wouldn't do the whole race together. Up to that point, it was really great being with her. And again, I think if either of us felt too hot, or that it was getting hard, we could kind of bounce off each other and kind of pull each other through it, which was good. I think at this point, when we saw that, and the kind of runners going one way, we're going the opposite, you do just think, okay, well, so how long will we be doing this for? And it does feel slightly different. It's almost like a bit of a gear change. But it was great. And again, just the support of everybody is wonderful. And I think the runners who were kind of coming past us in the opposite direction, they were cheering us on. So it was really, really nice. But it started to get very warm around this point. I think there were, the crowds had increased. Obviously, there were extra runners on the road coming the opposite way, and it was getting more built up. And obviously the day is going on, so it's getting warmer. So I think that was probably one of the tougher things, is actually the temperature really started to increase. So we were kind of needing to hydrate more. When we did see water stations, it was getting to the point where we needed to maybe pour a bit of water on ourselves to kind of keep cool. They had a lot of showers, the kind of misting showers on, but I wouldn't say it was a mist. It was more of a full-on shower, direct jet. So we all ended up getting pretty wet the whole way around, which again caused issues, I think, for some people with chafing. Again, I had a little bit of that, but luckily I'd taken Vaseline with me. So I managed to, get Vaseline on where my shorts were chafing a little bit, and it was absolutely fine. We carried on and it was okay. But yeah, it was a great point, because as I said, the volume of people really increased. But yeah, it was the heat, I think, was the kind of biggest thing at that time.
In that second half of the race, do you remember much about the landmarks that you ran past, or was it more of a focus on getting to the finish?
I think it was a focus of getting to the finish. I think Tower Bridge, just before that point, was amazing. And I think, everybody does, I think, seems to take a kind of an audible gasp as you're going through Tower Bridge and just thinking, oh my God, we're here. We've got to this point. This is amazing. The crowds there were awesome. Just the whole atmosphere and the scale of it. You don't realize the scale. So again, that's pretty special. And then as we're going through the next bit, kind of around Canary Wharf, everything's so built up, and it was a bit like a greenhouse, as I mentioned. The added glass, increased the temperature quite a bit. I heard that a few people were saying the temperature was up to about 29 degrees in places, which was interesting. So yeah, but as the latter stages, I actually left my friend Alice, who I was kind of buddying up with at the time, around the kind of 16 and a half, 17 mile mark. She was really feeling the pain, and she just told me to go on. So I kind of kept a good pace, and I kind of remained a good steady pace the whole way around, actually. I feel very lucky that I didn't really drop off too much. I had a loo break. So there was kind of 6-7 minutes of queuing to go to the loo. At that one point, but I'm glad I did, kept myself comfortable, and then on again. I think at that point I saw a few other people I actually knew. I saw a few of the other charity runners. That was really nice to kind of say hello as we were going through, having a bit of a chat, and then kind of focusing on, doing your own race again and kind of running on. And yeah, I think the only point really for me, I felt like I had to start digging deep as I passed mile 20. I think it was a psychological thing where I'd trained to 20 miles, and I knew, I was intrigued to see how I would feel going further. So as we kind of got to that 20 mile mark, I thought, amazing. Okay. We haven't really got that much longer left, of the race. So I was trying to soak it up and enjoy it. But that's where I really felt I had to kind of dig in a bit more as the fatigue set in. But again, at that point, it's the only time I actually put my soundtrack on, my music in, was at this point. And I just felt that I needed an extra boost to kind of get me going and keep my pace up. A lot of people at this time were starting to pull up, were really slowing. People were suffering a lot with cramps. So many people were getting off to the sides and either suffering with the heat exhaustion. I saw quite a few people faint. A couple of people being stretchered off, people stretching their legs. As I said, just really starting to suffer. And at this point, I kind of thought, right, I'm going to keep it sensible, stick to my training, stick to how I'm fueling, making sure I'm hydrating. And I just kept a good pace on and got the tunes going. So turned them up and just kept running. And I was really glad that I didn't, other than my loo break, I didn't stop running at any time. So I feel really proud of that. But it was just, those latter miles at that point, kind of keeping the pace strong, feeding in from the crowd and using them, but also having that music at the same time was really, really good. And I remember seeing kind of as we were getting towards kind of Big Ben. That was really nice to kind of, again, look up, look around, try and soak it in. That was amazing. And then as we kind of turned the corner and coming towards kind of the Mall, again, was just, the atmosphere was amazing. It was so brilliant.
Yeah, it's quite something, isn't it? You'll never forget that for the rest of your life. That last mile, particularly.
Yeah.
Um, I was gonna ask you about the headphones, because I know we touched on that in the last podcast. So you didn't use them at all until you got to that last sort of mile, well, mile 20, the point really where you trained up until.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And it made a big difference, just having that motivation. And was it the same soundtrack that you'd used on your long runs?
Some of the same songs. On my training runs, I listened to a lot of podcasts. Initially, I would do music, and then I kind of switched over and was doing a lot of the podcasts. I was listening to Paula Radcliffe's podcast, which again was kind of centered around training for the London Marathon this year. So that was fantastic, and I would really recommend that to people. And lots of others as well. And I think, to begin with, I think because I had somebody to run with, I didn't need my music early on. And as I said, the crowds at that point were brilliant. I felt good, I felt fresh. So I didn't feel that I really needed the soundtrack then. But just as I could feel my legs getting heavier, and as I said, it was very hot. And, there were a few things where you think it would be very, very easy to really slow up, to drop off pace. And you could almost let little niggles in. And I just thought, you know what, I need to put my headphones in. I'd put a few more kind of really upbeat songs on there, and I turned the volume right up. But I only had one earbud in, so I still could hear the crowd. I could hear people cheering for me. And as I said, I really kind of wanted, as soon as people did, I would try and wave or thank them or smile when people did that, because it was so lovely. But the music helped. I just felt it really helped me from mile 20, I'd say 21 to 24 particularly. That was really useful, just to give me that oomph to keep my pace strong. I could kind of run to the pace of the music. And again, they were very upbeat songs. So I found that helpful at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. What did you feel then when you turned that corner at Buckingham Palace and headed down those last few hundred meters? Amazing, isn't it?
It was amazing. Again, the scale of the crowds, the buzz, it just feels electric, as I said. And you just kind of feel that you're so close to finishing. You're so close to achieving this massive goal that you've been working towards for so long. And I think you just feel thankful that, hopefully you're going to cross the line. You've done the hard work, that bit's behind you. And I knew I would see a couple of people in the charity grandstand. So a few hundred yards from the finish, I was due to meet a colleague of mine, a friend of mine, who had a flag, a Cornwall Hospice Care flag, and she was going to pass it over to me, and I was going to run over the line with the flag above my head. So as soon as I kind of turned that corner and I knew I was kind of coming up to that point, again, that just spurred me on. And I think you get that kind of extra oomph to really kind of, not necessarily sprint finish, I would say, but to look strong, run strong, and you're going to see your friends and your family at the end of it. So it's so exciting. Just all of that compiled into one was amazing.
Right. And what about your nutrition then throughout the race? Just talk us through what water, how much water you took on, and the use of gels and Lucozade.
So I didn't actually take much Lucozade on the way around, because it's not particularly something I trained with. In the lead up, a few days before the race, with carb loading, which again should not be taken lightly, I underestimated carb loading and really how much you should be taking on board. So, that was a learning curve, I would say, to begin with in the prep. But I was taking some Lucozade Sport on initially, so in those days leading up to it. But other than that, I had my own hydration and electrolytes that I was using. I took a load of electrolytes the night before and then the morning of, which I found actually worked really well for me. But that was a precision hydration that I was using, that I had trained with. So I knew my system was used to that. And then on the actual day, again, I was using High Five gels, and I had Salt Sticks electrolyte chews. So I trained with those and I stuck to those. I didn't take anything else on that I had not trained with. Obviously nothing new on the day, as it's all drummed into us, we don't want anything new. And I just stuck to my plan of when I normally would take it. I started taking electrolytes, my salt chews, a little bit earlier because I could feel that I was sweating, obviously, in the heat. So again, just kind of made a conscious decision to start taking those a little bit earlier, and taking on as much water as possible. So every single water station, particularly I would say after mile 9 or 10, I would take a bottle and I would run with a bottle of water. So I'd be slowly sipping that. So again, I didn't want to kind of take it all on straight away. I was conscious I didn't want to waste any of it as well, because it was a hot day. They knew that, people were going to be consuming more than maybe they initially planned. So again, I was kind of conscious of that, but just kept sipping away. So my plan for my gels was really, I took them every 4 miles. But then as I got to mile, what was it? 20. Yeah. So mile 20, instead of taking my next gel at mile 24, I actually did mile 23. And then I did a caffeine gel just before the finish as well, just to give me that extra. And that seemed to work really, really well. So I think overall I had 7 gels, most of them just normal high five energy gels. And then I switched to the high five combined with caffeine were my last 2 that I took. And again, that worked really, really well for me.
Great stuff. Now, tell us your target time and your actual finish time.
So my target time, I wanted to do 4 hours 15, 4 hours 20, something like that. I actually did 4 hours 37, but again, that included me stopping for 5-6 minutes for my loo break. So on my watch, it was actually 4:31 on my Garmin. And again, I actually did stop and I saw my colleague Jane, who was there, who was kind of cheering us on for the charity. So I actually saw her at 2 points. So I did stop there as well. So I do feel quite happy with the time. Obviously, it was warmer. I knew I probably wouldn't be doing it in that 4 hours 15, 4 hours 20, with it being so warm and wanting to take it steady. And as well, running with my friend Alice, who initially we hadn't planned to run together, but we did for the first half. So that was a very easy, steady pace. So that was, again, I was going to be running around the kind of 10-minute mile mark and then kind of going into 9.5-minute miles. And actually, for a lot of it, we were 10.5-minute miles for the first half. So obviously that added time. So I do feel in some ways I could have done it quicker. I know I could do it quicker, but I think with the temperatures that day, I'm just happy that I finished it. As I said, there were a lot of people who were fainting or who had to stop, take some time out, and then come back and walk the remainder of it. So the fact that I got to run the whole thing, I felt good the whole way around. There was no point where I thought I've massively hit the wall or I can't keep going. So I felt actually taking that really easy pace paid off. I would have been gutted if I'd had to stop and walk, or if I'd had to, not finish or anything like that. And I think the risk of that for a first time marathon runner was quite high that day. So I'm just happy. And again, taking it slower, I got to actually enjoy the race. I got to look up, take on board who was around, all the support, the choirs, the DJs, the people, the landmarks. And as I said before, earlier in the chat, I may never, ever get to do London again. And I would have been, if I'd got a faster time, that would have been wonderful and amazing in one way. But if I hadn't actually soaked it in, and if I couldn't remember certain sections, I would have been a bit disappointed, I think, as well. So I'm really happy with the time. So yeah, overall, it was just, amazing. And yeah, I'm thrilled.
I think you did an absolutely textbook race, Jade, to be honest, because I think given the conditions, anybody who wanted to run a sensible, well thought out event would have taken it a little bit easier at the start, like you did,
yeah,
and pace themselves properly, because that wasn't a day for personal bests, and you've done an amazing job there, and that's still a really good time. Yeah, maybe a touch off what you were hoping for, but ultimately, as you said, you've enjoyed the race, you've got everything you wanted out of it, and you ran with strength to the finish, and not everyone can say that, because a lot of people went off too fast.
Yeah,
and wouldn't have enjoyed that. I mean, that last 10 miles, if you'd gone off too quickly, would have been very, very challenging. Let's switch briefly to the fundraising. How did that go? Because I know you did really well in the lead up. How's it gone? How did it go in that last week and subsequently?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. I was sharing lots in the week leading up to it. I was sharing lots, make sure sharing the page, sharing the podcast that we had done as well, and kind of saying, you know, if you guys hadn't had a listen, you know, please have a listen and just see how the journey's been for me. Gives you a bit more of an insight into the whole journey as a novice runner. And yeah, I was just kind of saying to everybody, wish me luck, and you know, top up my pot, and you know, give me, you know, kind of give me another extra boost towards the race. So I got a good few kind of £100 coming in. A couple of hundred came in that week, which was wonderful. I tried to post as much as I could on the day, but again, I just wanted to enjoy a lot of it. And again, the internet signal, all of that isn't great on the day because of the volumes of people. So yeah, I posted as much as I possibly could, but took lots of pictures. And then I did a really big thank you. I think it was the evening after the race, on the Sunday evening. I kind of put a load of pictures up and a big kind of thank you post to everybody. And I've kept sharing the page. I'm still at kind of 3,620. So I haven't quite hit 4, which was fine. Again, my initial target was 2,000. So the fact that I'm, you know, over 3.5, I'm absolutely thrilled with that. So yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, you've done an amazing job. And what would be your lessons, your top tips for next year's runners, both from a training perspective and on race day, and in fact on the fundraising? I know it's a very broad area, but just give us some tips that you would recommend.
I would definitely start early. Start early with your training, start early with your fundraising, break it up into sections, you know, as I said, and again, that goes for both. With the fundraising, break it up and look at various options for fundraising. It doesn't have to all come in via one channel. It doesn't have to be one big fundraising event, you know. So you can break it up and make it manageable. You can share it with friends or somebody else who's fundraising for the same charity, connect with people, and, you know, simplify it. I'd definitely say that. And the same with the training. As I said, for me early on with my training, I said I was just building a base level of fitness. So I'd be doing maybe kind of 2 or 3 miles, getting that in the bank, doing that a couple of times a week, and then just slowly build it, you know, keeping it as manageable as possible. We all have very busy lives. And again, it's just about finding the time, because there will always be time, but it's finding when it suits you and, you know, building from there. As I said, I joined a running club, so that was really useful for me. Or just finding, as I said, you know, connecting with the other runners who are running for the same charity, and maybe trying to, you know, create your own little running group, so you can work and do your training together. Because it's quite nice as you start to build towards long runs that you've got somebody else who will be out on the course, even if they're at a different pace. There's somebody coming out with you and doing the same type of mileage, and you know you're going to probably see them at some point on that run, on that route, is quite a nice thing to do as well. I would say getting your nutrition right, practicing with hydration gels, your electrolyte tablets early on, and just seeing what works for you, what you like, what you don't like, because some can be sweeter than others, or it's just the texture. They're all slightly different. So yeah, so I'd do that for sure. I would say looking at the carb loading for me, as I said, I didn't realize how key the carb loading was, and actually really what that looked like. I thought it would just be eating extra biscuits, extra bagels, but actually when you actually properly look at it and work it out, doing that in the couple of days leading up and, you know, 72 hours before did make a massive difference. And I think that really helped me not hit the wall. Again, hydrating that week before, trying to sleep better that week before, trying to stay away from, you know, children as much as you can, or anybody where you might be picking up germs. Easier said than done for me, because I have 2 very small children. But just being sensible, I think, in your decisions and where you're going and what you're doing, and just really looking after your well-being as much as possible was key. Trying to think other kind of bits of advice that I've had. Cutting your toenails. That was a big one, which again, I hadn't really thought about, but cutting your toenails to, you know, a decent, comfortable length a couple of days before the race. That was a good one.
That's a really good point, because so many people suffer with badly damaged toenails, and it's very common to lose a couple. I
hadn't thought about just, you know, obviously just, you know, making sure that they were freshly cut, you know, just a couple of days before. And I think, you know, a lot of thing about go to a really good, if you're getting, obviously you're going to be probably buying a decent pair of running shoes when you start doing a marathon training plan and you start that journey. But again, try and go to the best place where people really recommend and get your shoes properly fitted. Don't just buy a pair on the internet and hope that they'll be fine because your friend has a pair or whatever that might be. Go and get a really decent pair fitted. Good socks, also key. Really, really good socks. Again, I was recommended a fantastic pair, and I had the whole pair all the way through my training, all the way to the race day, and they've just been fabulous. I'm trying to think what else. A hydration vest or something similar. Belt for training was really good. And then getting a good belt for actually race day, or a good pair of shorts with plenty of pockets. It's all these things, until you do it, you don't necessarily think about, but they really, really make a big difference to you.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about, and it's amazing if you forget to do one of them, then the race can be very different, can't it? But when is going to be your next marathon to put these tips into practice again?
Well, I think, I don't know. At the minute, I haven't got a race booked in, but myself and a few friends were talking about getting booked in for a half marathon, which will be great. There is one, it's slightly over a marathon. So we're going into more ultra into those kind of lanes now. But a few people from the running club are going to be doing it in September. And it's a Saints Way Smugglers Challenge, and it's from Padstow to Foy. So it's quite kind of multi-terrain as well. So I am considering potentially doing that. But it's about keeping that training up. I'm going to keep running. I'm going to keep going to the running club. I'm certainly going to give myself a couple of weeks off long runs at the weekend. But I want to maintain that fitness, and, as I said, get a half marathon booked in, or one or two booked in, and then look at this ultra, which is mad to say, for September. But I have entered the ballot for next year for London. Obviously, I know a lot of people this year have entered. It's probably a record breaker this year for people entering. I've entered my husband as well.
Doing an ultra, that's quite impressive. But whatever happens, you'll be at London next year. If you're not running, you'll be supporting the charities runners, won't you, presumably?
Yes, I'm hoping so. Normally we just have one representative, but we're actually hoping to have two next year, so myself included. Luckily we actually did have an extra person who was going to be in London on the day for the charity, and they actually just used some annual leave, and they wanted to be there just to enjoy it. And actually we found that worked really, really well, to have a couple of people at different points to cheer all the runners on. Our team of charity runners is building every single year. We're having more and more applicants and more people engaging and wanting to do it. So again, we're kind of hopefully going to be increasing our kind of staff there as well, to really support the runners. So I'd be so excited. And I know a few people who are going to be running for the charity next year who have deferred, sadly, from this year, but will be certainly doing it in 2026. So I cannot wait to be able to be there and support them, and, to support them the whole way through their journey.
Yeah, that would be great. Seeing it from a different perspective, seeing it from the sidelines as opposed to actually running it. That will give you another angle on the whole event. That would be really good. Really good. Fantastic. You've done a really, really good job. From nothing to doing that kind of time, raising that kind of money. I think you've done a really good job. You followed the plan properly. You thought about it, and you started nice and early, and that's so important. And that is one of the key learnings for everybody, both from a training and a fundraising perspective. If you leave it too late, it puts so much pressure on you on race day. So thank you very much, and we look forward to hopefully hearing about your ultra journey.
Yeah, well, hopefully I should be. I'm pretty sure I'll be signing up. I've just got to clear it with my husband, just make sure that he's happy for me to start the training again. But yeah, I'm really excited. So yeah, I can't wait to kind of book in the next race.
Thanks for listening to this Sapphire Running Zone podcast. Keep checking back, as we have lots more podcasts coming soon.